on the last 2 or 3 sessions. So we have gone through how do we develop a personal instance. So how do you get the name for your own instance and a local username and a password. And afterwards, the structures of the instance, as in the banner frame, the left navigator, or in other words, you call it as application navigator, and then the content frame. The content frame is something that you have it in the the bigger box. So again, coming back to the banner frame, so you have option to look at your profile details, and of course a global search to check up all the details, like as in you can check your incidents, users, your list of ticket status, and all of that. You can use this global search similar to how you have your browser search or Google search, right? Like that. And you can use this connect chat or conversation to conversate with any of your colleagues or any users inside of ServiceNow. And this is something, a toggle help sidebar, which will give you documentations and and instructions in case if you need any help in the middle of page inside of ServiceNow. And again, of course, you have options to personalize your settings as such, your date and time settings, and the accessibility settings, and the list however you want to. So all this has been explained in detail over the last few sessions. And again, as a recap, in Filter Navigator, I explained you that what we have, that you call it as an application, and under each application you have several modules. So you could call an application as a category also, like you have several components under one category. And again, we also looked up on how do you create favorites and how do you change colors of them, text of them, and logos, right? The icons. And how do you create a favorite and edit a favorite. So you could use this option to edit a favorite, and otherwise to in order to make a favorite, you can configure a favorite for list as well as for any form users. Like let us say you have put up a filters this way, and you could still be able to create a favorite by using the hamburger menu that you see it on your list, by doing like this. Similarly, you can even make a favorite of individual records by again clicking on the hamburger menu, and you have an option called create favorites. And again, you have something called history, which will get tell you what have you done in the past, like which are the navigation page that you have accessed in the past. So all these will come up in the right side history. And we did also look upon how do we change the form layout, right, using form designer. So as a continuation to that, we will look up more in detail with regard to the form designers. And I think, yeah, we also did see how do we change the properties, right, basic configuration properties, as in changing your banner color, your own entire theme colors, the font sizes, the logos, right, the logos of the company, and the title of the company. All these can be changed, and all those was covered in basic configuration UI 60. And I've also shared upon a few exercise for you guys to modify it. I hope you would have done, and I expect you please pass on to the admin your respective uh, instance names and the username and password that you had created separately for the trainer to validate. So this will be helpful for the future sessions when you start doing more exercises, so that I can validate each one of your instances, and try to see how I can help you if you've got stuck somewhere. Okay. And in the previous sessions, I had also told you that in ServiceNow we have several versions, right? The upgrades concept. Like as each year we have two upgrades. For example, this year we have Paris and Quebec. So in order to identify, let us say you have a company instance, you join a company and they give you an instance, but you want to identify in which version they are in, right? So how do you do that is, so you just type in the left navigator stats dot do, right? So the moment you do it, you can see that the data has changed in the URL. So it has got appended with stats.do. So it gives you statistics of this entire instance, as in the database level memory, memory and all of that. And as you dig in deeper, you will see more of the server and database level configurations of this instance, and how many nodes we have, what is the workload of the instance at this moment. So all these details in detail, you will be able to see it here. uh, let's say, in some companies they'll say the instance is down, right? So the first thing that you have to check when somebody complains that the instance is down or something, how many databases are connected to the nodes. So all these details you will see it here. But on a general context, it gives you details, as in what is the current build name, as in our language you can call version, which version are we in. So this instance was, I purchased this instance in Quebec version. A lot of you, when you installed, probably you might have opted for Quebec, or you might have opted for one version prior, which is Paris. But neither way, it doesn't really, makes a big difference. It is fine. And which IP address are you connected with, and all of that, shows up right here. You see your instance name, and every instance has its unique ID. So this is the unique idea of that. So this is how you get in detail of all your statistics of your instances. Now let's get into incident form, and I can explain further on the how well you could make utilization of your form designer. So before we could get started with today's session, any questions with regard to the last three sessions we have, so that we could get that clarified and jump into the other one?
Hi, only we have two searches in this. I mean left navigator and global search.
You have furthermore searches, like for example, so you remember I told you the different categories of accessing an instance. There are people called end users who only raise a request and submits a issue request, or a requirement request, like I need a laptop or I have an issue in laptop, right? Issue versus request. Those are called
Okay.
end users. And there's a different category of people called ITL users who work on tickets. And third category, admins like us, admins and developers like us. So coming back to your question of searches, you have multiple searches across different places of the page. For example, I go to service catalog, right? So this is something that you can call it as a search, right? Not just this search. Here also you have something as a search, right?
Okay.
And other places, do you see? This is also another search. I can explain. Yeah, I'm gonna, my next part of the session is explaining what is this related search and all of that. But to answer your question, not just one search, we have multiple searches across multiple places. And to set you a context, uh, we not only have one interface, we in fact have two interfaces. One is portal. They call this one, they call it as native interface, right? Native. The other one you call it as portal interface. So when I type service portal, I see something called service portal home, right? So I dig in right into that. So it takes me to a different altogether UI. So you call them as portal interface. This is a different interface which is used exclusively for end users. So their job is not to work on tickets or work on issues, nothing. They will just raise requests, they will approve requests, like end users or managers, like that. So here again you see a search box, right? So these are the various
Yes.
places where we have search boxes,
Okay.
right? Okay, any other question? All right, if there isn't anything else, we'll get started with um, further learning about form designer. So I think by now you should have some basic understanding of what is an incident form, right? So let us see how well we could configure this form design so that a lot of informations are available and unnecessary information is taken from the layout. We're not removing it from the table, but we are going to remove it from the user's view because we don't think we think it is not required for the user, something like that. So what you do is you do a right click and you go to configure and you choose form design, right? So here you can see that the table is incident, right? Table is incident, right? And here you can see that the view, it talks about the view. The view is self-service. You can see from here that the view that we have chosen is self-service. And whatever shows up here is all the existing fields that we have right now on the incident form. So let us say that I wanted to have a short description field. Oh, it's already there. Mm, okay, we do not have assignment group here, right? So I'll just type assignment group, so it filter downs to me the list of fields that starts with the word ASS. So I just drag and drop this data up here, and I feel we do not want to show the on hold recent field to this user, right? I can remove it. I can remove it from here and save this up. So as I told you another day, we can make it as one column or make it as two columns, right? And again, we have options to add sections and remove sections. Okay. Now let me refresh the form so you could see the changes that we have done. So you can see that assignment group field shows up, and there was previously a field called on hold recent. It got eaten up here. Now there is something that says Reddit search results. So it is unclear for the users at first point, like, okay, what is this? So when you click onto it, whatever you type in a short description, right? Um, Laptop issue. It gets reflected back here, and all the knowledge and catalogs. So when you say knowledge, those are KB articles, right? Knowledge based articles. I mean, the articles that might be of help for any IT users to review and see if it can be a self-service guide for them to help by their own. And what is a catalog? Catalog is something, it's like a menu card, right? When you reach into a restaurant, you open up a menu card and you choose what you want to have for the dinner. So that is what you call it as a catalog. Now, so as and when I type in my short description, uh, it fetches results that might be relevant to this short description. So why is this important for incident form is because um, let us say I raise an issue stating that salary not credited. Okay. So there are not enough knowledge base or catalogs for these keywords. So because of that, it shows only one uh, article that might be of help. But what is the intention of having this related search is because, so let us say, somebody has an issue that salary not credited. So before they raise an incident means an issue, right? So system will show you the relevant articles and the catalogs that the system thinks might be helping the user, because if they can get the answer what they want, they need not raise a request or an issue, right? Once their issue is resolved, there is no point in raising a ticket. So it gives you few suggestions, but even after that suggestions are read and all of the guides are read, you still feel no, nothing of help. My issue is a different issue and I want to raise a ticket. Then people can go ahead and create a ticket. So this search articles and knowledge base and catalogs will help them to identify whether this issue can be resolved by their own self. This is beneficial for both IT and for the end users, right? It's like you have your chatbot, right? In chatbot, it gives you suggestions. Do you think this will help you? All of that, right? So this is something similar to that. Now, since I had told you that whatever is typed onto the short description, it comes up here, right? But there might be people who don't even attempt to click on this button, so they will not know, right? So let us do one thing. So let us keep a text on top of this so that people know that, oh, I have to click onto this button. So if you want to keep a text on the form design, probably there's something called annotations. Okay, here let me show you something. This is something called fields, and this is field types, right? So what is a field type is, incident field is a free text, whereas caller field is looks a little different, right? Because that field is a reference field to some other database. The some other database is nothing but user database. So caller field is a reference field that points to the user database. So you call this as a single line text, you call this as a reference field, and you call this as a list. So why do I say list is because you could enter multiple people here. These are some of the field types. So you could enter multiple people here, right? So you call this as a list. Again, assignment group is a reference field because it again points to a different database, but you could choose only one particular record from that. Here in assignment group, it is referencing to groups table, and then here you have something called short description, which is again a free text. And these two, open and closed, are date and time fields. This one is a choice list. So every single field uh, is mapped to a different data type or the field type. So because in such a way the field is designed, and see, you cannot put this opened in this place, right? The date and time format. What will happen if you keep it like this? It will be difficult for you to generate reports, right? The date field has to look like a, has to be mapped to a date and time field. Only then it is easy for generating reports, and also to on a larger basis it is easy to identify the data. Now with this understanding, just look at what are the different field types we have. So we have field types like audio, calendar, choice, currency, date, date and time, decimals, due date, duration, and all of that. So each of these words are self-explanatory. So as an exercise, what you could do is you could create one field and just change the field types to one to another so that you know, oh, which field is capable of what, right? So in this, let me give you an explanation of what annotation field type is. So let me say I create a field called annotation. So I double click onto it. It appears like this, and I'm going to change a few things to this field. So how do I change this? You have a gear icon here, and it shows, it gives me a pop-up with two options to fill in. This option would differ for each field type. For annotation field type, you just require to feed in two information, whether you want your annotation type to be in blue box or red box, how do you want it to be, and what is the text you want to display. Whereas if I click on editing a different field type, it will show me different columns, right? Because for a reference assignment group, you want to tell the system what is the type and which table is it referencing to, and should I keep it mandatory, read only, and all of that. So as per what the field type demands or requires, accordingly different set of different set of feed in options will change. So let me give it as info box red, and I will type it as click on relate, related search cells button to based on your short description. Okay, for some reason that save button doesn't appear here. So I will show you another way how we could update the annotation. So for now, I have just saved up an empty annotation. As you remember, when you do a right click configure, there are two options, right? One is form design and the other one is form layout. Both typically does the same job except that the interface is little different. Meaning form design, opens up in a way that it is easier for anybody to drag and drop and bring the data. It's as easy as it looks. But when you do form layout, it might look a little different. um, all right, so you can see that it gives us a message that click on related search result button to view the results based on your short description. So when somebody reads this message, they know, oh, okay, I know this is the point of it. So whatever I type here, and when I click here, it's going to render me results based on that, right? So if you feel that you want to give a user some information, then you could make use of the field type called annotation. So this is about annotation. And again, next I want you to understand about formatters, right? So as I type formatters, you see there's a lot of formatters that is currently available. You can see that there is already a formatter called contextual search result formatter and activities filtered formatter already put on the right, so that is why it doesn't show us on the left. So I will explain in detail about what is a contextual search result and what is the activity formatter. As the name suggests, it gives you results based on the context, right? So you have what context data in this. So this contextual formatter, this entire box, right? The one that you see from this related search results button up until this last, right? When I click on it, marks up a blue box, right? This entire box is what you call it as an contextual search formatter. And what you call it as an activity formatter is underneath the additional comments you see fields like activities, right? See, whenever somebody changes state or any other field as such, it gets logged into the activities. In progress, was new, and all of that gets appended here, right? So all this is what you call it as activity formatter. Now you have the option to identify what are the fields that you want to update and which you do not want to show. So on to the right of the formatter, you see something called filtered activity, right? So you'll have to click onto that and you'll have to select what are the things that you want to see. For example, people will say, okay, when I change the short description, I don't want to see it in the formatter. Or people will say, when I change the short description, that also I want to see it in the activities. Then, okay, I'm just looking at it. A short description is not available in this list. So even if I change the short description, it is not going to reflect here. Now, how am I going to have that reflected in the activity is, so you click on to that filter icon and you click on configure available fields. So it gives you a slush bucket wherein on the right it says whichever fields when changed or modified, that will show up in the activity. So rest of all these left side box fields will not show up in the activity even when you change it how many ever times. Now I'm going to choose short description and push it to the right and save it. Yeah, now once I have done that, you could see that whatever is the activity change that has happened to short description, it started showing up in the this place, isn't it? So this is how you make use of your activity formatter. Any questions with regard to contextual search result formatter and activity formatter?
Ma'am, regarding form design, I have one doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Hello. So,
Yes,
can we
please.
create one customized? Can we create one customized field? Like,
Hmm.
if, for example,
Yes,
we don't have short description. So, can we create short description field, new one?
that is, it will all come under configuration of the form. For example, let me duplicate this tab for you. So you do a right click, okay? You do a right click, configure all. So let me put it in a language. All these are called as dictionary entries, right? So in one language you can call it as fields. In other language you could call it as dictionary entries. So now
Yes.
what I've done is I did right click, configure all, so that I get access to configure everything. Now in that I go to something called dictionary entries. Do not jump to dictionary entry override. Stick with dictionary entries, okay? So here you go ahead and create a new record. When I say new record, it's a new field. And now, so as you said, you wanted to create one more field called short description because you feel that short description field is not available in this particular form.
Correct.
So before creating, we have to choose the data type. Like, is it going to be a true or false? True or false means like a checkbox, boolean, right? And audio, calendar, which one you want to do. So I will just put it as a string. So I choose string, and it asks me what is the column label. So I give it as any suggestions. Okay, let me put it as conversation uh, notes, technical
No.
notes. Okay,
Okay.
technicals, technical notes. So I just take my hand off that, and system automatically creates a backend name for that. So the point in creating a backend name is it has to be unique across the table, and it should not have any special character or I mean as in comma, semicolon, nothing like that, and there should not be spaces. So system automatically puts an underscore. So again, why system puts a u underscore is because this will differentiate how there are some out of box fields and there are custom fields, right? What is an out of box field? Short description is an out of box field. Number is an out of box field. Urgency, whatever you see already in the base system is called out of box field. Whatever you create by your own is called custom field. So system recommends and suggests to put u underscore. U means user, like we user are creating it, right? So that in documentation also it can be better differentiated which is created by us and which is created by the system. I can show you what is the backend name of short description. So I go to this field and I do a right click. You can see, right? What is the backend name? Short underscore description. There is no such thing
Yes.
called u underscore. It is because it is created by the system when this instance was developed. It's not created by users like that, like us, right? So maximum length, this is again self-explanatory, so I'll give it in 100, right? People can enter maximum of 100 characters, and you have further options like this. I will get into detail in the end of the session about this. Just because you asked me this question, I'm jumping right away to this topic, but this is all in our curriculum, but I wanted to take it one phase after the other.
Okay. Thanks.
Now we have added this technical notes. Let us add this technical notes in our form layout. Right, so I drag and drop it probably on the top and save this up. I refresh this form to see if it got reflected. So you could see on the top right? All right, if there isn't any other questions, I think we can jump into the next one. Okay, I can, so we have seen enough in incident form. I can show you change form, right? So if you remember what is a change is, it has its own workflow. As in, um, you can see the process of the stage. See, in incident, it can jump from one state to other state at any given time. It can directly jump from new to on hold, new to resolve. But whereas when you see change, it has its proper flow. First, it has to be new, and then it has to jump to assess, authorize, schedule, implement. So each one has its own definition. So each of the state has its own definition. Now, how to bring something like this bar inside a form, right? So this is what you call it as process flow formatter. I will repeat. So incident and change form, like in incident, it can jump from any state to other. This is all business requirements, okay? Here you do not have a definition of, okay, it should jump from new to resolved only, new to in progress only. Sometimes, let's say on ticket assignation itself, people, the subject matter expert has an answer to it. So right away they will put it as on hold and awaiting user confirmation, something like that. But in change, it has to follow a sequence of workflow. As in, first it will be new and somebody will assess it and then authorize means approvals, then schedule the change. And once the schedule is attained, like let's say there is a change planned for coming Friday. So right now itself I will create a change because this is something a planned change, right? And until Friday comes, it will be in scheduled phase only. So on the same date and time of Friday, it will jump into implement state, and then once it is implemented, review. So you can identify, when I say itself, it has a proper flow. For something like this, it will be nice for users to have a process flow formatter so that they can know what's going to be the next one, right? And it will also look, aesthetically good also, because when it is in a different state, the color will also change. This blue bar will jump into authorized this thing, right? So this will say tick tick, meaning this has passed and it has come to now authorized. uh, so it looks good in that way as well. Okay, this is a previous state. All right. So now let me, get into the details of how do you handle a process flow formatter. So I'm into incident form. Let us say I want to create a process flow formatter for incident. Now I again go to my form fields. So type in formatter, but I don't see anything called process flow formatter, right? But instead, if I choose change form, right? See, I can do right click, configure form design and go. But in other ways, shortcut, as I told you, this first box represents the table and the second box represents the view, right? So instead of doing that extra step, I can directly switch to change form design. So I jump into change request and default view. So here you can see that, oh, the process flow formatter is there. You can see something called process flow, right? But in incident we did not see. This is because process flow definitions was created for change form, but it was not created for incident form. That is why it did not appear in this search place when I tried to insert a process flow formatter for incident form. Now the next question is, how do we do that, right? So I just type as process flow. It gives me one module. I can see the list of flow formatters that I have. Let me group it by table. So how do I group it by table is, I go to the field, do a right click, group by table. I can see that for change table I have 8. For another table called CMDB business process I have 4. Problem 6, problem task 4, and there's another table called publications which I have 6. Now let me show you that 8 process for flow formatters. So you can see the labels: new, assess, authorize, schedule, implement, review, closed, cancel. Isn't it the same that you saw here? 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, it's 8. So you can see the exact 8 here, right? So before we could create one for ourselves, I will explain you how do we, how does it works in the existing change request form. So before that, like, to handle and play around with any lister, so I have told you how do you do a group by, right? So let's do an ungroup. And if you want to see the data based on sorting in Excel, how you do sort A to Z, likewise, you can sort any of these fields, like right click, sort A to Z or sort Z to A. And here you have a filter, right? So in filter, you go to and click on to the filter, wait for a second. Yeah, it will open up something like this. So you have to, you can, this is what you call it as field value, and this is something you call it as operator, and this is value, right? So let me put a filter. So here you have only 28 records. This is fine, but there might be a table where you have lakhs and lakhs of records. So you cannot, open each of the records. It's difficult. So what you do is you put up a filter to fetch the data that you want. So you give table. Yes, there are a lot of operands here. I will explain one of them. Table is change underscore request, right? So the backend table name is change underscore request. So I give it a run. So I can see all of these. Now, are these the only fields that is available in the record? So I just open these, first record. So I see a lot of other fields also, but for some reason I can only see some 6 fields here. So how do I bring them up here is, you click on the gear icon. So you call this as personalization. Clicking on this gear icon, and I'm bringing all the data, like, control A, and pushing everything to the right and giving it OK. Now I am a user called system administrator, right? So whatever I have done right now will apply only to me. So when I say only to me, I'm talking about personalizing list columns. Like, what are the columns I want to see? This applies only to me. It will not reflect to the other people, even though you're an admin, right? So this is called personalization. As the word says, it is exclusively for you. You're not changing it to anybody else. So having all these set for with regard to filters and how do you personalize your columns and grouping and sorting A to Z of any columns. Now let's see different fields that we have when we create a process for formatter. So you can see that for everything you give a name, and of course it is active true, and you give the conditions, labels and order, table, so all of these, right? I will create a few, few things for incident tables so that you have an idea. So as I told you, we do not have in the base configurations or out of box, we do not have process flow formatters designed for incident table. Let us create one. So I choose the table as incident. and I give the name as, probably I'll give it as new only. This is something that is on the for the developer documentation, this name. But what you want to see it for the user is the label, right? An order is, as I over, you can see a help text that says order to display label. Like for example, in change request, this is of order first, second order, third order, fourth order, fifth order, right? The sequence of displaying. So I'll give it as 100. I can instead give it as 1 also, I can give it as 10, doesn't matter. As long it is a smaller number, doesn't matter. Let me give it as 10, right? So you are going to put up a condition on which condition this particular label should show. So I'll just put state, right? Yeah, state is new. Right click and save. So I created a first flow formatter record for my incident table. So as soon as I did that, system gives me a message, process flow formatter automatically created for the incident table, right? Now, if you look at incident table, now you see something called process flow, right? Previously you were not able to see. It is because system checks, oh, do I have at least one configuration record that was developed across this table. So until 5 minutes back, we did not have anything such, so it did not show up. Now we have, so it shows up. So we'll just drag this and put it on the top and save this up. It doesn't show anything because right now state is in progress. Have I put it? Okay. Okay, let me show it for the other few fields as well, so that because a process flow formatted to work, you need several stages of the incident, right? For example, for new, we have developed. What are the other states we have? In progress, on hold, resolved, closed, right? So let us create one for in progress. Progress. So instead of creating new, I will just do right click, insert and stay. Insert and stay means the existing record that I was in, it is undisturbed and it created a new record, like how you do a copy button, right? So something like that, copy and save. Insert and stay is nothing similar to copy and save. Okay, I forgot to change the label, so I'll change the label as well. Right click, save. Now I have two things done. Next I will jump into what is the other thing that I have? On hold, resolved. On hold, on hold. Right click and insert and stay. Next is resolved. Okay, I think this is enough. So I will do created is it to A to see the list of records that I have created. Okay, what is the mistake that I've done is I've given them all an order same. I will do show matching of incident to avoid confusion. So you can see that we have created 4 records. Everything is fine except for that we have given everything as order 10, 10, 10. So it doesn't work like this. You have to give a different orders. Like for example, this one I'll give it as either I'll just give it as an incremental. Like I'll give 20. I'll give like 40. It doesn't have to be multiples of 10 or anything. It can be anything, but just that it has to be in incremental values. Like I can give 66. But if you see on a larger context, it is smaller number, a much bigger number, a much bigger number, and a much bigger number. So it works like that. Now, in form design, we chose the table as incident and we chose the view as default view, right? That is why previously it did not show for us, because right now we are in which view? We are in self-service view. But all our changes are done in default view. So we need to switch the view to default view. So once we switch the view, we can see that, but it is not looking good, right? This is because of the reason that um, it is because you can see this process flow formatter is here, but the split, right? The container start and split. This is one container. This is container start, this is container end, and this is where we have developed a split. So instead of developing a split here, we should have brought it a little bottom so that this contact and all will start up here, and in the form look also it will look good. But hope I hope you understood how a process flow formatter works. So if I change the state to on hold, so you can see that on hold. Okay, it switches back to in progress, which does not generally happens. Let us review. The system does not allow us, possibly because. All right. Right. So when I debugged, I was able to find that when you switch your states, it is important for the assignment group to be mandatory. Otherwise, system does not allow you to. So after identifying that, I made sure assignment group is filled, and afterwards, when I changed, it started saving. System allowed to save it. It wasn't restricting because there was a backend configuration to abort or stop updating the record when assignment group is not filled. So that is done. So that issue is fixed. But all these debugging concepts and all, I'll teach you, in later part of the sessions. It might look a little complex for you at this point of time. Right. So, any questions with regard to the process flow formatter? So we've discussed on why do we need it and how do we design it, and when does it show up on this form design and when it does not show. So all of this has been discussed. Any questions with that?
Hi, can we create process flow format for incident as well?
For incident, right? So we created for
Yes.
incident. We just created it for incident.
How did
Previously we
we
saw.
insert
Hmm.
how did we inserted that process flow formatter inside the incident form design?
Okay. So how did we do is, so we went to incident form default view. Same, right? Right click configure design. In that, you just have to type formatter. It will show you the list of formatters that is available in the system. It was like this. You see something called process flow, right? So I just type formatter on the search, it gives me list of formatters that is available for incident table. Here I see something called process flow, so I just drag and put it on the top and I save it. So this process flow will appear on the search only after you create a flow formatter here.
A flow formatter for design incident forms, right?
Yeah, see, there is a word called process flow appearing here, right? It will appear only after you create one record for the incident table. Like until 30 minutes back, there was no flow formatters available in the base system for incident table. So we created these four. You remember, right? We created these four. Upon
Yes.
creation of one or more records on the incident table, automatically you will start seeing up a formatter called a flow format process flow formatter inside this box. You just have to drag and put it wherever you want it. So since it's like a workflow indicator, I'm putting it on the top so that looks good and it serves the purpose.
Can we add extra states like I mean like closed and resolved states to the process flow formatter?
Then we need to automatically select the radio button value. So if you don't want to create, that's what like you said. So if the file
Hello.
name is not null,
Yeah, one at a time, please. Yeah, file name is, yeah, you don't call this as a file name.
yes, yes,
These are different field types, right? These are different field
yeah,
types. So there is something called formatter. That format, under this formatter, you have something called process flow formatter. You have something called activities formatter, right? It will start showing up in the left box only when there are relevant records in the system to display. So, in order for process flow formatter to be available in the left box, it is important you create flow formatter records for the incident table. So, if you remember 30 minutes back in my meeting, we were able to see that in change form it was available, in incident form it was not. So, we were trying to bring that for incident form and we typed upon a word called formatter, but it was never showing up. So we went ahead, went to process flow formatters, clicked on create new, and we created just one record for an incident table. Afterwards, it started showing up. Right? Does that answer your question?
okay,
Yeah,
yes.
can we add extra
Hmm.
states to the process flow formatter like resolved state,
Oh,
closed
okay,
and
yeah.
Hmm.
cancelled states?
Hmm. Yes. So we created four formatters. One is for new, in progress, on hold, resolved. We can also
Yes.
further create for how many other fields we have closed and cancelled. We can create
Yes.
two more for closed and cancelled as well.
Okay.
So whatever we have done now, make sure you do the same in your personal instances. If anywhere you have an issue, never mind, just document that issue and let me on the next class. We will I'll help you to fix that. But make sure you practice it. Otherwise, as each session grows up, the amount of things that you're learning will increase. So you will have to practice it then and there. Otherwise, it will get keep on accumulating and you will lose touch in that. Right. So jumping into the next topic, um, I will explain in detail. So let us say you have a user called Abel Tutor, right? Again, jumping into form design, um, you can see, you can understand that what these field types are. This is string, this is string, string, and this one is a reference. Again, this is a reference, reference. These are true or false, right? And this one is the image. So quickly, how do you identify what is the type, what is the data type is? You just go into any field and do a right click and there you see something called show, right? So click on that show. It will tell you what is the field type. That field type is email, right? So I do the same for user ID. Let me see. So you do a right click and you click on left click on show. It tells me that this username field is of the type string. So the front end name for user ID is user ID. The back end name for user ID is user underscore name. So every single thing has a front end name and a back end name. So in mobile phone, you can see, in business phone, right? In business phone, if I click, the front end name is business phone, back end name is phone. And the type is, there is one field type called PH phone, PH number. And here I have a field called avatar, right? I do a right click, show avatar. Backend name is also avatar. The field type is user image, right? So like that, each field has its own backend name and it has its own field type. So all these you can see it like this. Now, this is a reference field, right? So reference field means it is referencing to a different table. Right now we are in user table. So when I click on the magnifying glass, it tells me that this specific field, the company field, is referenced from a table called core underscore company. In other words, you can say companies table, and it brings in data from there, right? So there's a company called Fujitsu Freedom Scientific. So you can choose the fields like that. And if I click on this info icon, right? So it gives me the preview of the record. You don't, I mean, you see a small information about this record. For example, you can see which state or province this particular company belongs to. You can see it like this. Now, let us say there is a requirement such a way that in in user table form layout, instead of clicking onto this info icon, I want to see it probably right away, next to that. I want to see company's state or province. So how do we do, right? This is what you call it as dot walking. As the technical name suggests, what you do is you go to the dot and you walk from there, right? You touch a knot in the thread, and from there you move to the next step. So that is what you call it as dot walking. So let me tell you, how do you do a dot walking in the form design. So as I told you, you have form designs, right? So there's two ways I told you could change the form layout. Either use a form design or use a form layout. The difference between these two is that form design is a better looking interface, but form layout is like little technical. It looks like a slush bucket and it is little confusing for people coming new. But I would like to teach this specific concept in form layout so that you understand it easier. Now, this is the company field, right? This is where we have company. We have it beneath the password need reset manager, web service acts only. Beneath all these fields, you have a field called company. Now the requirement is that you want to see company's state or province. So when I put that is, right? So in left navigation, you just type C. So it will show you the list of all the records that starts with word C. So this is the one that I'm looking for, right? So you see a plus icon, whereas in city or class, you don't see a plus icon. This is because city or class is not a reference field, whereas company, cost center, all these are reference fields. Now I go to this company field and I click on this one, right? So this helps me to walk into or expand this particular selection. So I click on this and just leave it for a second, and then I will be able to see all the fields that are available in my company table. Like inside my company table, what did we discuss? We wanted to see state or province, right? So I'll just type yes. Yeah, so I can see state or province here. So I've chosen that and I'm bringing it to the right. So once I bring it to the right, it becomes to the bottommost, but I want to push it to a little top. So I just click on this move up icon. I basically want to show it up just underneath my company. So yeah, this looks good to me. And whatever change I've done, done it on default view, right? Default view, and I give save, right? So as you can see, company fields comes up. Underneath you see state or province. So to help users to understand, from where this field is coming up from. So when you hover onto this, it will tell you that it's coming from company. So you can see, read it, right? It says company, state or province. So it's for the user to easily understand. This is what you call it as dot walking. This we have discussed about in regard to form layout, dot walking, bringing of fields. But let us say you want to run up a filter. um, okay, so I want to see the list of users whose company, okay, let's say I want to see the list of active users and whose company, whose company stays in, whose company is located in America location. Okay, so I need to dot walk here. Now I've gone into company, but I need to go to company dot state or province, right? So what I can do is I just type state or province, but this state or province represents user state or province, right? But I want to go to company status province. So what I do is I type on a word called show related list. Show related list. Now that we have enabled the option of showing related list, now if I type company, you can see it is a little different, right? It shows up two companies. One is the general company, the other one is if you want to uh, dig into the details of the company. So I chose the second option. So you choose second option, and afterwards I given detail like state or province contains. If you're very sure of the value, you can basically put uh, state or province is, but if you're not really sure, you can use this operator called contains. So I give America and I give run. Out of 617 users, I have 143 users who are from the company wherein the state or province is America, right? So when you open any one of these record, Acme North America, you can see that the state or province is America. So what I'll do is um, I'll just choose Acme South America company. Here also I'll go. Here also I'll go and update the data with America. Now it is 179 records. It does not only shows North America company, it also shows South America company. Any questions with regard to how do you do a dot walking and why do we need a dot walk and what is the purpose of it? Any questions with regard to that? All right. So we will wrap up the session in another 5 minutes. So whatever we've done today, make sure you do a practice, and to keep you engaged. Probably I'll give up an assignment. This is something a little too advanced, but I think this batch might be interested in it. So we have a table called users and it has some fields, right? How do you create your own table and fields? So we'll look at that quickly in 5 minutes, and I will give that as an assignment for you to develop your own table and come back tomorrow. So in current scenario, a lot of companies are trying to document the COVID details, right? So let us create a table that says COVID, COVID status request something or vaccination. Okay, let's create a table called uh, user vaccination details. So how do you first create a table is you just type tables and columns. When you type tables, it's going to show a lot of things. Don't get confused. There's something called tables and columns, right? So you click on there and you choose an option called create table. I'm definitely going to take a detailed section on how do you create a table and expand it furthermore. But to keep you engaged, probably this might be of interest to you. Now, what is the table label that you want to give? So, as we discussed, we'll give it as uh, user vaccination data. Okay. I don't have to worry about creating a backend name. System will suggest by its own. And there are few checkboxes enabled, right? Like create module, create mobile module. What do you mean by a module? Module is something that gives you access to show it in the left navigation, right? So it's is it asking like you want to create a module, you want to create a mobile module? By default I've checked it as yes. Under which you want to show. So there are several applications already available, right? So I'm saying that show this under menu module self-service, or else I'll just leave it to create new. I'll create my own module in the left navigation that again goes by the name user vaccination data. And I do a right click and a save. Now the table is ready. But this is an empty table. You do not have any fields as of now. So once you create a table, there are some default fields like created by, updated by, sysID. So all these are created by its own by the system. Now let's create few more fields like status. And what is the data type of this field? We can leave it as a string for now. And of course, who's, right? User. And this obviously has to be a reference field. You cannot key in like random names. It has to pull in from the user table. So I given user against column label, I've given reference against type, and in reference I have to give which table it has to reference to. So I click on the search icon, I see a lot of existing tables, so I will choose user table from here. Okay, here again you see a lot of tables, right, with the starting name user. So you have to choose something that says sys underscore user, system user. So that is why I have been focusing on how do you remember the backend names of the table. For example, company table backend name is core underscore company. The user table backend name is sys underscore user. So it is important for you to memorize a little few things. You don't even have to put a deliberate effort to memorize. As you start working in the system, you will automatically have this registered in your mind. So I give it as user, right? And dose one. Um, I can put this as a true or false, which means like have they, had their first shot or not. And again, dose two. Again, this I can put it as true or false. And I can put dose one date. I can put this as date field, not date and time. Date is more than enough. Again, dose two date. Right. Next, claim status. Like there are companies offering, reimbursement claim for vaccinations as well, right? So we can put that, or we can put um, current current city, something like that. This I'll give it as a string. Okay. After doing all of that, it is important to do a right click and a save. So this is just a very basic form that I've created for now. And now you know that the table name is user navigation data, right? Just refresh your screen once. Type user vaccination data in the left navigation, and you can see an application got auto created and a module. So you just click on this thing. So you see that, you know, all these columns showing up. Since there is no data, it doesn't show up. Like I'll just create one record. Those one date is, I'll put it as last Friday. It's for able tutor. Windows done. Requested. Right. So this is only like 10% of table creation. Just creating a table is not important, and it can be done in Excel also, right? Then why do we need ServiceNow? So with this you can play around with a lot of things. That is what is handled in this configuration. Inside this configuration it says business rule, client scripts, and all of that, right? Those are very detailed things. But I'll for today I'll leave it here for you to just explore more and get your hands on and creating a basic table, something similar to this. So you can either use the same idea of user vaccination data, or probably a COVID health record table, something like that. That is relevant to current scenario, or anything, any business requirement that you come across. So you create a table, and from there we will see by this end of the training, that table itself we will use to expand your complete application development. Any questions so far?